Your parent was there. They fed you, they drove you to school, they were physically present in the house. But when you cried, really cried, they changed the subject. When you were scared, they told you to stop being dramatic. When you needed to be held, they handed you something to eat instead. And you learned very early that your emotions were an inconvenience. So you became very good at not having them, or at least at pretending you didn't. If you grew up feeling alone in a room full of family, if you learned to handle everything by yourself because asking felt pointless, if you still struggle to trust that someone will actually stay, this video is about you, and I need you to stay with me until the end, because what we're about to uncover isn't just your past, it's the invisible architecture of how you love, how you work, and how you see yourself right now.
Picture a child, 7 years old. Something happened at school today, something that hurt deeply. A friend said something cruel. A teacher embarrassed them in front of the class. They come home carrying that weight. They find their parent and they start to speak. But before they finish the first sentence, the parent is already looking at the phone, or sighing, or saying, "You're fine, go wash your hands." The child stops talking. They go to their room. They sit on the floor, and something very quiet happens inside them. A small door closes. Not loudly, not dramatically, just quietly. Click. That child learns, my inner world is not welcome here. And they spend the next 20, 30, 40 years living from behind that closed door, wondering why connection feels so difficult, wondering why they feel like a stranger, even to the people who love them, wondering why, when someone finally gets close, something in them wants to run.
Emotional absence in a parent doesn't always look like neglect in the way we imagine it. It doesn't always mean a parent who is drunk or violent or who left. Sometimes it looks like a parent who is physically present but emotionally unreachable. A parent who provided everything material but had nothing emotional to give. A parent who is depressed or anxious or simply raised in a home where feelings were never discussed and passed that silence directly to you. Psychologists call this emotional neglect, and unlike physical neglect, it leaves no visible marks. That's what makes it so difficult to name. Because when you try to describe it as an adult, you often feel guilty. You say things like, they did their best, they worked hard, they kept a roof over my head, I have no right to complain. But emotional neglect isn't about what your parents did, it's about what never happened. The comfort that never came, the conversation that was never had, the moment you needed someone to look at you, really look at you, and they simply couldn't. What never happens leaves marks just as deep as what does.
Here is what emotional absence actually teaches a child. First, it teaches them that their emotions are too much, that the way they feel is excessive, inconvenient, wrong. So they learn to compress themselves, to take up less space emotionally, to become small and manageable and easy. And they get very good at it. So good, in fact, that by adulthood, they often can't feel much at all. They describe themselves as numb, disconnected, like they're watching their own life through glass. Second, it teaches them that they are fundamentally alone. Not alone because circumstances changed, but alone as a default state. Alone as the truest, most reliable thing about existence. This becomes their baseline, and they unconsciously recreate it everywhere they go. Third, and this is the one that changes everything when you understand it, it teaches them that love and absence go together. If the first people who were supposed to love you were also absent, your nervous system fuses those two things, love and distance, care and unavailability, connection and eventual disappearance. So as an adult, you find yourself drawn to people who are emotionally unavailable, not because you enjoy pain, but because unavailability feels like love. It feels like home. And available love, consistent, warm, stable love, feels suspicious, foreign, suffocating, wrong in a way you can't explain. This is not a character flaw. This is a child doing the only logical thing possible with the information they were given.
The first pattern shows up in relationships. People raised by emotionally absent parents often become incredibly self-sufficient adults. They don't ask for help. They handle everything alone. And when a partner offers support, genuine, consistent support, they feel uncomfortable. They say things like, "I'm fine," when they are not. They pull away right when they need someone most. Because needing someone feels dangerous. Needing someone is what you did as a child, and it didn't work. So you quietly decided never to need anyone again. The second pattern shows up in how they handle their own emotions. Many people raised this way become experts at intellectualizing feelings rather than feeling them. They can analyze their sadness with extraordinary precision. They can explain exactly why they feel anxious. But actually sitting inside the emotion, letting it move through them, that they cannot do. Because emotion was never safe, so it went underground. And unexpressed emotion doesn't disappear. It accumulates, and eventually it finds a way out, through sudden rage, through physical illness, through an inexplicable collapse on an ordinary Tuesday afternoon. The third pattern is perhaps the most painful. People raised by emotionally absent parents often become emotionally absent parents themselves. Not because they don't love their children, they love them desperately, but they were never shown how. They have no model for emotional presence. When their child cries, they feel a panic they can't name, the same panic their own parent must have felt, and they reach for distraction, or logic, or silence. The door closes again, in a different house, in a different generation.
Here is what nobody tells you. The longing you feel, the ache for something you can't quite name, is not a wound. It is evidence. Evidence that somewhere inside you, the need for real connection never died. That despite everything, despite the closed doors and the silence and the years of learning to need nothing, something in you still knows what it deserved, and it has been waiting. Children who receive no emotional attunement don't stop needing it. They stop expecting it. Those are very different things. You stopped expecting to be seen, but you never stopped needing to be. And that need, that quiet, persistent, undefeated need, is the most human thing about you. Here is the second thing nobody tells you. Emotional presence is a skill. It is not a personality trait you either have or don't have. It is not something you're born with or permanently without. It is something that can be learned at any age, in therapy, in honest relationships, in the slow, deliberate practice of letting yourself feel things in small doses and surviving them. Your parent couldn't give you what they never received. That is true. And it is also true that their limitation does not have to become your ceiling.
You are not too much. You are never too much. You are a child with a full and valid inner world, and you happen to be raised by someone who didn't have the tools to meet you there. That is a painful accident of circumstance. It is not a verdict on your worth. The self-sufficiency you built, the independence, the competence, the ability to handle everything alone, that was extraordinary. That took real strength. You should know that. But you are allowed to put some of it down now. You are allowed to need people. You are allowed to say, "I'm not okay," and let someone stay with that. You are allowed to receive love that is consistent and warm and present without waiting for it to disappear. You are allowed to open that door. Not all at once, not without fear, but slowly, with intention, with people who have earned your trust. The child who closed that door did it to survive. The adult you are now gets to decide, slowly, carefully, bravely, to open it again. And that decision, made even once, even imperfectly, even with shaking hands, is the beginning of everything.